Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We are a couple minutes early, but we are letting people in. So that is a good thing. If you guys have access to the chat, if you can do me a favor and drop your name and your location, we would love to get to know everybody that's joining us. We have people joining from all over, so that's pretty cool. Um, so while we have a couple minutes, if you can go ahead and start networking just a little bit inside of the chat. We're going to go ahead and mute everyone except David and myself. Um, so, give me just a moment. We are recording. Yay. We had some technical difficulties our last trainings, but this one we are good. So, we're so glad to have you all joining us. Super excited. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I am so excited to talk about social media because it's one of the top priorities right now, and especially for a business owner. So I am super excited to take some notes and learn. Give me just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody and ask Mr. David to unmute for me. We're a couple minutes
No.
early, so I just unmuted you. So we are a couple minutes early, so I'm just asking everybody to drop in the chat for me where their name and where they're located. So, and maybe what industry you're in too, because you never know. You never know. You might meet somebody you could collaborate with or something. So, if you are a business owner, rather an entrepreneur, a small business owner, drop the number 2 in the chat for me. I want to make sure you're in the right training. And I'm super excited to see what Mr. David is going to present. This is my first time seeing this presentation, although he presented for us, he said over a decade ago. So I'm super excited. Ooh, diversity assessment. Oh man, Miss Erica, human resources, restaurant owner. Oh man, Albert, I can feel your pain. I am still letting some people in. So we're gonna get started. I have a 5-minute rule. I don't know if other people have that 5-minute rule, but I do have a 5-minute rule for the people that's running just a little behind. So in the meantime, we'll network a little bit, get to know each other. For those of you who do not know, I am Latasha Brooks. I am our Central SCORE chapter workshop coordinator. So I coordinate all of these workshops. And I'm super excited that Mr. David is going to be teaching us regarding social media marketing for entrepreneurs and small businesses. So I am just as excited as you guys. I'm going to be taking a plethora of notes to keep that social media going. All right, Family Credit Union. We have a credit union in the house. That's big. Everybody should want to get to know the Balin's Family Credit Union. So thank you so much for joining us. And as you guys can see, everybody needs help with a little bit of social media. So you are definitely in the right place. Ooh, technical editor and writer. El Maggie, you are going to be needed a lot these next couple of years. So super glad that you're able to join us as well. So while we're waiting, while we're giving them that few-minute grace period, I'll go ahead and explain to you guys who SCORE is and what we're here to do. SCORE is a resource partner of the SBA, Small Business Administration, and we're a nonprofit organization, and we provide free training, courses, resources to entrepreneurs and small business owners. So if you are needing some additional help with your small business, please reach out to your local SCORE or reach out to us so we can try to get you some mentoring and some resources and a listening ear, okay? Because as a small business owner, we all know that we just need some people to talk to that understand what we're going through. So I am going to go ahead, without further ado, turn it over to Mr. David. Mr. David is a freelance copywriter and journalist. And so today he is going to be presenting for the second time for us the social media marketing for entrepreneurs small businesses. So if you do not have pen and paper, grab you a piece of paper and pen, and let's go ahead and dive right in.
Hi, good morning. So the presentation is social media marketing for entrepreneurs and small businesses. And my assumption here is that the folks I'm talking to are either, starting a business, writing a business plan, maybe they have an established business and they're looking to figure out, how do I get more customers or how do I expand my business? And I am either the sole employee or, the president and sole employee, or maybe I've got a couple people working for me and I'm just looking to make what the next steps are. So we're going to talk about social media strategy. Just to give you a little more background, I work for, I'm a freelancer. I work for a number of ad agencies, and I am not the strategizer per se. I'm the guy that they say we need, something for our social media, and I write it. And in terms of what I'm trying to think of where you're coming from, so to speak, is the way this presentation has been structured. So we're going to be somewhat conceptual. We're actually going to be, we're going to be covering today the tip of the iceberg, and we're not even going to get real cold doing it. But I want to give you some ideas about where you could get started with this. I mean, I'm sure, it's 2023. Everybody knows something about social media personally, but I'll give you an idea where, as a business, where you can get started without investing maybe a lot of money to do that. So with that explanation, let's a little history here. Back in the Paleolithic age of the internet, which is, we're talking about the 90s, right? One of the first innovations was the internet used to be all very text-based. Along comes this thing called a GUI, which is a graphical interface, which whoever the technical writer who is on the call here certainly knows about. And there was this thing called guy selling books called Amazon. Well, we all know what's happened with Amazon. And these days, I say here, everyone has a website. Well, maybe you guys do, maybe you don't. The question is, if you got a website, so what? So what I call classic social media strategy is that your website is the center of your solar system, right? All the other things, your Facebook pages, your Twitter feeds, whatever, their primary purpose is to drive traffic to your website. At the same time, these become a vehicle in which you can collect data about your customers, sometimes in real time. And thirdly, it increases your brand awareness. You're getting your name out there. More people are seeing it. If you have more, the more active you are on social media, the more you promote yourself, you should be expanding brand awareness. So I'm a small business owner, an entrepreneur. I'm starting my business. Do I need a website? The answer to that is probably. And we'll find out as we go through this what I mean by probably. But if you're going to have one, is it any good? One of the problems with, we're all aware of the discussions these days about high-tech firms and social media. And one of the things that social media unleashed was that everybody who thinks that they know how to do something can do it on the internet. And many times they don't. So in terms of, am I going to have a website? What makes a website good? Well, it's got to reflect your brand, right? That would seem to be rather obvious. It's got to be about whatever it is, what your brand story is. And when presenting that, it's got to be easy to understand, meaning it's got to be written so, the person with an average education can follow it. You get me from point A to point B to point C to whatever it is that I'm selling. So it's easy to understand, and it's easy to navigate. It's what the technical term is, intuitively obvious. If I hit this button, I know I'm going to go to this page or to this topic or this thing. I don't have to sit there and look at a manual or go to Google and say, how do I do this? Or why can't I do this? And I think we've probably all encountered things where, well, this doesn't quite, why am I doing this? Why do I have to go from, why do I have to take 8 steps to something that should take 1? So again, on your website, depending on how complicated it is, and it doesn't need to be complicated, it should make the user should be able to go right through this thing and get to exactly where you want them to go, which is, to sell your services. It's also got to be visually compelling. It's got to look good. It can't be just a random series of bad photos. It's got to be something, say, oh, this is a professional site. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means. And it has to have a modern design, meaning it doesn't look like it was created in 2010. And we'll see an example of that in a little bit later on. And this is what is critical to any kind of social media strategizing. Is your website findable? And we'll get to that in a second. Whoops. But the bottom line to all this is, does your website sell your stuff? Does it sell your services or whatever it is you're selling? That is the ultimate criterion. Okay. Just a quick little story. I was sitting in a meeting once, and the person who was running the meeting was bringing out this Harvard Business Review study of this, I think it was Evian water, but it was some company that sells bottled water. They had a YouTube video in which there were like a gazillion views. And the person was presenting this as like, this is smart marketing, blah, 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 blah. So, I had to be a wise guy, and I raised my hand and I go, okay, there's like 20 people in the room. And I said, okay, having seen this video, how many of you are going to go out and buy this bottle of water? And maybe 2 hands went up, which would be what, a 10% response rate, which in terms of social media isn't all that good. My point being that there's a lot of things out there that look clever, that are amusing, but if they don't sell your stuff, what good is it? Now, sometimes in social media, we'll say, for the next 30 days, all we're concerned about is brand awareness. We don't care if it results in what's called conversions, meaning I actually bought whatever it is you're selling. But we just want people to know that we're out there. So that kind of, goal, that objective is certainly legitimate. But if at some point making people aware of who you are doesn't result in them buying from what you are, you've got a failed strategy. The great thing about social media strategy is it collects a lot of data they can use to evaluate, and that you can then say, okay, what am I doing wrong here? It won't provide you with the answers, but it will provide you with something to think about. The other people mistake, is that, oh, I got a website, I'm done. And if you don't know the reference here, there's a movie with Kevin Costner in which he's living out in these cornfields in Illinois, and he's visited by the ghost of, I think it's Ty Cobb. And they says, you build this baseball field out here in the cornfield, and these guys from the 1909 Chicago White Sox or wherever they are will materialize and play baseball for you in your backyard. And that's the kind of thing that happens in the movies. As we're going to see throughout this presentation, just because you have a website doesn't mean anybody's going to your website. Just because you put a post somewhere on some social media doesn't mean people are responding to it or that your business is going to grow. You have to do things proactively, marketing 101, for people to know that you're there and get there. So the analogy is you've got a website, but it's a website is like having a billboard on a dirt road. There's no traffic, right? Nobody's coming there. Great, you got a website, so what? Now that could be okay. And the reason I say that is, I'll give myself as an example. I have a website. I rarely, if ever, update it. And I don't need to, because, for me, my website is, because I've been doing this for so long, and I have all these established relationships. If somebody comes to me and wants to, hire me for something, and I say, oh, okay, go to my website and you'll see some links to the work that I've done. You'll get an idea of my background, and it's sort of like, a handy resume. And maybe for some of you that would be just fine and dandy. You don't have to put a lot of effort into it, or at least in terms of marketing, using a social media in that way, because that's all you're going to use it for. You give you directions. What I'm doing, here's my URL, my address. This is how you get to me. I think I did a Google search on, I put down, based in Virginia. So I put down my name. I said, my name, freelance writer in Virginia. And I showed up like on the second page of the Google responses. But I don't care, because that's not how I get business or how I get clients. But if you're looking for your website to reach out to potential customers, I got to find people. You got to provide them with directions. So how do we do that? And here we get into, maybe, I'm sure you may have heard of this, is something called search engine optimization. And SEO is a discipline unto itself. It involves, I don't know if technical is the right way of putting it, but there's a reason there are companies that all they do is SEO for other companies, because it's a very, in some ways, you as an individual business owner can do some SEO work, if you want to call it that. But some of it's pretty obvious. And to give you a quick overview of that, SEO is, how do I make people aware of my website? Well, there's a whole way of doing it. One of these is you may have heard about this, is keywords. All right. Keywords reflect what my business is about. It's embedded not only in the content that I put on my website, but it's embedded in the coding of my website. Okay. So what happens is I got a website, and I've done some of my basic SEO, right? I've got some keywords that say, I'm in the business of chocolate pretzels. So I have a website. I'm the chocolate pretzel king, and I keep using that word chocolate pretzels, and my coding has all those keywords in there. And why do I need all that stuff? So that when you do your Google search, you come up high in the rankings. The studies have shown, or they indicate, or the theory is that people generally might look at the first 1 to 3 listings. They're not going to scroll down. So your objective in doing any kind of SEO is to see where you rank in the Google search, and then think of strategies to rate higher. One way to cheat is to pay Google with an ad. So I'm always going to be up there. Home repair is always going to be up there. Now, the other theory is that some educated consumers will say, oh, that guy's paying to be there, or that's just an ad. I don't want that. I'm going to go look at Charlottesville Home Repair. So that guy has been doing his work so that he goes there. So the odds are pretty good that when people are looking for home repair services, they go to Charlottesville Home, they see, Charlottesville, that's the first one they're going to click on. Maybe they'll click on these other two to do some comparisons. Maybe they'll just go see, this guy's paying for it. Let's see what it is. So again, your objective, your SEO strategy is to always try to be in the top 3. And if you're not in the top 3, the next thing you got to do is figure out, what do I need to change that I can get in front of these other guys? So if I'm just starting out in a business and I don't even have a website, how do I get one? So this is WordPress, and they are probably one of the more popular ways to code a website. If you were to go to an agency and say, I need my website created, and you're a small to medium-sized businesses, most likely they're going to be using WordPress. And if you go through the internet, you're going to be able to see that there are, like, I don't know how many, there are a whole bunch of templates that they use, but the WordPress style is very much identifiable, which is not a bad thing. But there are others, but this is the number one. Can you, as someone who, may not be, I don't know, tech savvy, as some people say, get a open up a WordPress account and create a website? Yeah, you could. It's not, it's not any more difficult than learning, Word or PowerPoint or anything like that. It doesn't require a lot of technical skills to do it. One thing I would suggest is that, again, when you create content for your website, this is going to be a theme as we go through here. Content is king. WordPress started out as a blog site where initially it was a cool way for people to be self-published, right? You go on almost any website today, there will be a blog about whatever it is that's related to whatever it is they do. This, as it happens, is a blog of my own. Why are blogs important? Well, 2 things. One is there's another way to promote your product. All right. So what I've written here is about, the whole working from home thing that happened during the pandemic and how companies have reacted to it, and which kind of relates to the fact that I'm in this business of working from home, which writers kind of pioneered. The other thing that makes it important about a blog is that what the Google gods do when they have these little, what they're called web crawlers, that go out and look at all this stuff that's out there on the internet, and they evaluate how they're going to rank certain businesses or websites one over the other, is whether the content is periodically updated. One reason why, I'm on the second page of Google search is because I haven't updated my website in months. So it's why you'll find on seemingly mundane businesses, companies that are, plumbing companies, for example, we'll have these blogs about, how to install your dishwasher. Well, it's both informative, you're providing customers with a little bit of help, and moreover, you've got updated content, and that's going to help with your ranking. So again, if you're going to have a website, going back to, build it and they will come, this is going to be a constant thing for you. It's not just something that you're going to leave there, but you're going to need to keep updating it. So how do you do this? Well, you could do it yourself. All right. You're going to have to say some sort of schedule for yourself that, I'm going to do a blog every other week, or I'm going to do whatever, which raises the questions of, can you write? Do you have a good design sense? And do you have the time to do this while you're running your business? And you have to understand SEO. So why are these jokes funny? Well, they're funny to people who understand SEO, because an SEO copywriter walks into a bar, grill, pub, public house, Irish bartender, drinks beer, wine, liquor. Why is that funny? Because that's what SEO does. I own a bar, and in the content that I post on my website, I put all these words in here that I know that people search for on the internet. They'll look for public house. They'll look for, a bartender. They'll look for a bar. Down here, I sell light bulbs. So light bulb has got to be one of my key words. I'm going to integrate all these sort of terms into the content that I post on my website. So there's two things going on here. Once upon a time, again, going back to the early history of the internet, people were saying, I'm just going to post a bunch of stuff. Doesn't matter whether it's coherent, but Google will see all these great keywords and I'll get a high ranking. So eventually Google caught on to this, and I have no idea how Google knows how to do this, how the algorithms know how to do this. But if they see stuff that's, garbage, is just one slew of keywords, you get penalized for that. So it's not only a case of can you write, but can you write SEO and in a way that doesn't get you caught for loading it up. Okay. So now we have this thing called Chat GPT, and I've actually played with this a little bit. And if you've been reading the news, a lot of people are worried about, well, particularly schools are worried because, as many of us might have done in high school, I don't have the time to do this. And I could just go into Chat GPT and say, write an essay on Queen Victoria. And the thing isn't bad, but so far, at least, it's been pretty easy to detect that this stuff was not written by a human being. There are mistakes in it, whether syntactically or things that are just wrong. Because what this does in a very fast way is it pulls stuff off the internet and it doesn't think, it doesn't see that, this isn't related to that. What it does do, and this is the argument in its favor, it does provide you with, let's call it a first draft. So a human being can look at this and say, let me edit this in such a fashion that, it's more coherent, or it's more in my tone of voice. The other thing that I'm not quite sure about is that Google knows when you're plagiarizing stuff. And that's essentially what Chat GPT is doing. It's taking bits and pieces from the internet and copying and pasting. So one of the things that I do is a client will come to me with what's called skyscraper content. It says, here's a blog that I like on whatever the subject is. Let's say how to install a dishwasher. And David, rewrite it. Which means that it's got to be the same topic with the same tips, if you will, on how to install a dishwasher, but it's got to be completely different from what the original is, because otherwise it's plagiarized. And that's an ethically, incorrect. And again, Google will catch you if you just copy and paste content. So if you're thinking, maybe I'll use this tool, rule number one is do not accept that whatever it is it gets for you is something that you can use. You got to edit it. You got to look through it and think about it, rearrange things a little bit, put it in your own voice. Something to consider. I'm not advocating Chat GPT. I can tell you that so far I have not been fired from anything I do because my clients go, David, we now have Chat GPT. We don't need you. So this thing is still somewhat in its infancy. So again, do you need a website? And if I'm going to do it myself, do you have now an understanding of keywords, meta tags, which is the code that goes beneath, the thing that you don't see that contains keywords? Do you understand the concept of SEO? You can acquire that knowledge, and you can acquire it at a basic level that it may be sufficient for you to run your business. Do you have the patience to learn a program like WordPress to publish this website on your own? Do you need a website really to grow your business? And then how much is this going to cost you? There are some, you can go to WordPress, will give you a free website, but whatever it is, when you look at the URL, the address that is where your website is located on the internet, it will say, mybusiness.com/WordPress, which immediately indicates, and it will, on your pages, it will say created by WordPress. All of which kind of indicates a Bush League website. I don't want to pay for it. I want a free site. It doesn't look professional. It looks like you're trying to get by on the cheap, which is not a good look. So there are two elements of this. You got to buy a domain name, which is, mybusiness.com, right? And that costs you something like, 40, depending on where you go, something like every 2 years, you get a bill for something like $40. Not a big deal. You've got to host the website, and you've got to pay somebody to put your website on a server somewhere. And that can cost you, between $100 and $200, depending upon where you do it. And an added plus is, and if you just don't want to have a Gmail address, you want to have a professional, john@mybusiness.com address, you got to pay something like, $6 a month to have that particular identity. So that's not much, right? That's really kind of small change if you're going to do that. But what are your options, right? If you don't want to go pay a company to do it for you, you don't want to do it yourself, or at least create the website yourself. It depends. If you're selling a product, you can get your website on any platform that has a shopping cart. We talked about Amazon at the beginning of things. Amazon, I don't know if they invented the term the shopping cart, but they were one of the first companies that added something. Oh, I want to buy this. Boom, it goes. We've all done that, right? Because we all, like things delivered to our front door instead of having to go to the store. If you're selling a product, a physical thing, obviously, one place you can do that is on Amazon. Another one is Shopify, and eBay. eBay is sort of like still looks like a 2010 website. It's really still kind of an auction site, but there are a lot of people who sell products on eBay. I'm not all that familiar with Shopify, but Amazon is, of course, the premier place where a lot of third parties go. And there are a lot of advantages to selling your stuff on Amazon. There's also, it's not simple. There's money involved. You have to pay Amazon a fee to be an Amazon seller. This is from one of their help pages on Amazon. And you could see before you start, we've got a lot of topics here. An advantage to this is that you get your own store. And where you can establish your brand, and it's pretty easy to use. Also, if you have a lot of SKUs, if you have a lot of products, you can use something that's called fulfillment by Amazon. They handle the logistics of order fulfillment, maintaining your inventory for a fee, of course. But that is, you know, an option for you to use. Having said all that, this also is not easy. This also requires you to know a lot of things about, again, SEO, keywords. You can, you know, do things like on Amazon, like even buy keywords during certain, you know, high selling periods. Arguably, third-party sellers on Amazon aren't retailers. What they are social media companies. What they spend most of their time doing is trying to figure out, once again, going back to that thing that we saw in Google, is when I type in a search term, I want to buy black shoes, that if I'm the black shoe company, I'm 1, 2, or 3 on that search thing. Now, again, keeping in mind that without knowing what any and all of you do, and I'm sure it's all different, to go if you want to call it evolving theory of social media strategies, the website is no longer, you know, the center of the universe, but it's almost equal to all the parts that go into it. And Danny here this is a little explanation of his about the difference is called the smartphone. There are various studies that shows that almost the majority of online shopping is done via smartphone, not from your desktop, which means there's a whole nother strategy, meaning people are not necessarily using the, you know, the Safari or whatever it is on your smartphone to go to a website to look either to buy a product or to investigate a service, but they're going through the social media that, you know, hit the icon on their phone to go to this thing to sort of evaluate what's going on. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. One thing I want to point out to indicate what I was talking about before, we go all there. If you look at the second graph here, whoops. Let me go back. We see that Danny uses this word principal when websites are no longer a sole or even principal destination. And Danny does not understand the difference between principle, meaning a concept, meaning a rule, you know, the principles of good web design, as opposed to principal, spelled Principal, or meaning primary. And I know this only matters to English majors, but this emphasizes again that if you use a spell checker, spell checkers don't understand context. So it is absolutely important that when you do whatever content you're doing, Danny, that you proofread this thing, and you have to have a proofreader who actually understands English. Most people maybe won't notice this because it's a technical distinction, and it maybe, you know, in one sense doesn't matter, but it does matter, at least from my viewpoint. Anyhow, so let's look at social media. This I think, for many of you, might be the entry point to all this stuff that we're talking about. And without maybe getting, you know, involved, as people like to say, too much into the weeds, and using up your time to do it. So here we have a comment by Jeff Weiss, who I believe is a LinkedIn employee, and this is pretty old information. I think 2014, but I thought I'd use it anyway, because it points out that, you know, all these small businesses in America generate all this amount of money. And according to a study by LinkedIn, which of course is an old study, social media is increasingly becoming the vital axis upon which this community turns. And Yeah, that's true. I mean, today, I mean, this is 2023. And marketing is more and more focused on social media because it is more effective. You can know, you put out a print ad and, who knows how many people read it. Oh, well, we've got X amount of subscribers. Okay, but I don't know if people actually looking at the ad. With social media, you can see how many people are looking at the ad. Moreover, you can see not only how many people are looking at the ad, but you can see how many people click through the ad and then go on to buy something, which is called conversions. But the other thing I want to point out about this, and again, this goes back to, content is king. What is the, all right, so Jeff has written this and he's kind of, advertising the expertise of LinkedIn, and, we have all this information that LinkedIn users can use. But guess what? We can share this information on Facebook. We're tweeting it. We're sending it to Kindle, which is kind of interesting in itself. And, people are clicking on this. So what it becomes something of its own. Just, you've got one piece of content that's being viewed in one context that gets used over and over and over again to expand the reach of whatever it is you're trying to communicate to with your audience. So I'm a small entrepreneur. I don't want to go through this. I mean, maybe I'll get a website, but I just don't want to go to the hassle of trying to manage it. I don't want to go on Amazon. I just want to, get started here because, I got other things to do, like, running my business. So there are a whole, I'm sure you know, because you probably use some of these already, various platforms. All right. We're going to focus on the first three, but let's talk a little bit. There is YouTube. All right. YouTube is a very effective marketing mechanism. Same kind of sort of thing that, people have got to be able to find your YouTube. So it's kind of a, I would think starting out, it'll just be a thing where you post somewhere, hey, look at my YouTube video that shows how my product works. You've also got to know how to produce a semi-professional, good-looking video. All right, that it can be, just a talking head. If it's short, I'm going to tell you this, that, and the other thing. I'm out of here in 2 minutes. If it's going to be something long, again, it's got to be something a little bit more interesting. It's got to have, different kind of graphics. It's got to like hold people's attention. Again, if you're not a videographer, it may not be something that you want to attempt, except for something in a very short form. I also put on this list Nextdoor, which, is an interesting phenomenon of itself, even though it's primarily a place for people to complain about their neighbors. Oh, the Grimwalds haven't done their lawn in 2 weeks. What's wrong with these people? It's also a place where businesses go up and say, I have a service. I hired a guy to tile my kitchen, did a great job. Where did I find him? On Nextdoor. And because he got all these great ratings, reviews from all these other people, which is another aspect of social media, is reviews. I go on Amazon. Do I buy the product from the 3-star review? No, I buy the one from the got 4.5 stars. And then we get into this whole discussion about how do you influence customer reviews? How do you get good customer reviews? Which is a whole, probably a seminar of it itself. Twitter with a question mark. Yeah, we all know what's going on with Twitter. If you do tweet now, it's probably a good place for, I don't know how many followers you have, to say, hey, by the way, I start my business, and here's a couple things you need to know. I have never been asked to write Twitter things. It's still something that businesses do to promote themselves. I have no personal experience with it. You've got to write within so many characters. You've got to do it fairly frequently in order to get followers, and you've got to be on topic. So again, that's a little bit of an art. TikTok is blowing up. I think I read this morning where Montana is going to block TikTok. I don't know how it is they intend to do that. I don't know whether China is looking at all this stuff. There are a lot of people marketing their things over TikTok. Again, the videos are short, so anybody can do it. It doesn't have to be, a big production. There are a lot of what they call social influencers on TikTok, meaning people who have certain skill sets, like doing TikTok videos, who you can employ to do a video for yourself. And also they in turn will, push your brand. I'm a social influencer. I'm going to mention you so many times during the month, and there's probably some exchange of money or goods in order for me to do that. And there are tons more. But let's look at Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. All right, so this is Sidetracks Music, which is a local record store here in Charlottesville, Virginia. This guy has a Facebook page. Facebook, it doesn't cost you anything to go on Facebook. If you already have a Facebook page, you know that. You don't have to pay anything. It's there. It's relatively simple to do. And there are a lot of tools at your disposal. And here we have the Sidetrack Music's on the left, their Facebook page, and on the right, their website, which this is significant right here because this guy in the middle is Elvis Costello. So if you're into records, if you're into music, you know who Elvis Costello is, and you look at this picture, this is the owner and one of the employees. This is super cool. This is a store that Elvis Costello visits to buy his records. Maybe I want to go to this store. So he's using a simple picture to effectively promote his business on a platform that doesn't cost him any money to maintain. And we go over here to the right, we have his website, which he still has. All right, besides the fact that from a visual standpoint, it's pretty terrible. I mean, this is the building. This is a picture of the building as it was 100 years ago that his store is in. Who cares? What's that got to do with selling records? We have this horrible font that's hard to read, which is in green for some reason. If I didn't know this website was dead, that has never been updated, best of 2017 here in 2023. So obviously he doesn't care about this, nor should he. The only thing this is here for is, find us on Facebook and Instagram. And even that, I don't even know that he needs it. So let's talk about Instagram. Once again, doesn't cost you anything. And we're, of course, we're with the same, company here. And, let's put aside all the problems with Zuckerberg and the silly name of Meta and what's going on with them. Instagram, it's free. And if you have something that can be easily taken a picture of, whether it's your product, whether it's one of your employees doing whatever it is you do in your business, all you got to do is take a picture and post it on Instagram. And for this guy's business, we're showing pictures of records. That's why people go into record stores. He's not interested in driving you to his website. He wants people to get into his store and have the experience of being in that physical location. And as you get followers and as these things get reposted, it's all free publicity. It's not costing you anything to do that. So if I were starting my business and didn't want to spend a lot of time, creating a website and maybe paying somebody to do all this for me, this is something I could spend 5 hours a week doing. And I emphasize a week because, again, you just can't post something and just ignore it and say, oh, yeah, it'll take care of itself, because it won't. Now, another thing is LinkedIn. This just happens to be my LinkedIn page. Yeah, that's me. Maybe some of you are already on LinkedIn. We all know about LinkedIn, and it's a quote unquote networking site. It is a good place for you to get visibility. One of the things, of course, is that down here, Articles by David is posting content, and the more people that see your content, the more likely, maybe somebody will say, hey, I saw, I understand you do X, Y, and Z, and I'm interested. That's really what we're trying to do in this ecosystem of LinkedIn. Let me make a couple of quick observations about LinkedIn. The running joke about LinkedIn is that it's become like Facebook, meaning people post things that aren't really business related. And the argument in favor of that is, well, it's just like being at the water cooler. If I want to show pictures of my kids, it's the same thing as if I do it in the office. Well, yes and no. Showing, I'm sure your kids are cute, and putting them on there doesn't really matter unless you're selling baby products. Just putting up stuff for the sake of putting up stuff seems to be somewhat similar to what I was talking about before in the early ages of the internet, that you would just put a bunch of keywords, not worry if it's coherent, and eventually you would get a nice rating. Okay. People aren't going to read it. People are going to, their eyes are going to glaze over. If it's not talking directly about your product and what you do, why are you doing it? There is this, I think it's called comment for reach. People will just put that in there because it boosts, the likelihood of more people reading it. But again, if there's nothing there, why are they even reading it? The other observation I want to make, if you're going to make a short video, again, a talking head, you don't want anything more than a couple of minutes. Please don't do it in your car. Please don't do it while you're walking outside. Please don't do it while you're having a coffee at Starbucks. It just looks like, oh, I'm trying to show you how I'm so busy, I have to multitask. Well, all right. My personal opinion, it makes you look stupid. And I realize there are guys on there who make a lot more money than I do, or a lot more successful than I do, but I find it highly annoying. Just sit at a chair, do your pitch, and move on from there. The other thing that I would avoid is politics. You see a lot of that on LinkedIn these days. Unless it's associated with your brand, there's a company called, I think it's Black Rifle Coffee. Veteran owned, they do a lot of good work with veterans. Their politics tend to skew towards the right end of the spectrum. Big Second Amendment, you'll see a lot of posting on their sites. and their attitude is, if you don't like it, go to Starbucks. Similar kind of thing with Ben and Jerry's. You're going to be, you're addressing a progressive audience. If that's your thing, fine and dandy. If it's not, don't engage. Because as with much of the conversation on social media, it's all about, there used to be this idea that you have a conversation with somebody, you would say something, oh, that's a good point. But on the other hand, blah, blah, blah. Now it's all, you're a jerk. No, you're a jerk. No, your mother wears army boots. Don't get involved in any of that. And why would you want to potentially drive away people who could be buying your product or service just because you don't agree with their politics, unless for some reason or another, that's a moral choice that you want to make? Anyway, that's my LinkedIn thing. I would point out that there's a LinkedIn wannabe called Alignable. Maybe some of you are on it. You can do the same sort of things on there that you can on LinkedIn. How effective it is, I don't know. It's just right now, it just strikes me as being very minor league. Maybe you want to be on it, but I wouldn't waste a lot of time worrying about it. It might just be a thing to, I don't know, copy the stuff that you do on LinkedIn. Now, one thing that's key, we'll go back, we're going to go into this a little bit more, is that when you go on a post, when you post stuff on LinkedIn, it tells you things. It tells you who's been looking at it. It tells you how many times you come up in a search. These all become metrics by which you can figure out how effective it is, whatever it is I'm doing. So, if in the last week I got 10 profile views, hey, I might think that's pretty good. 52 people have looked at it. That might be okay. Maybe I want to get up to 100 or 1,000 or whatever. So you get the data. The data itself is useful only if it gives you an idea of what your next steps are supposed to be. Where do I go from there? In passing, I want to mention email. Again, we could have a whole seminar about email. There's a whole, discipline, if you want to call it that, about writing effective emails, but it's a great way to have an email list where do you get an email? Where do you get people's email addresses from? Well, if we go back to LinkedIn, you know, you can find people. That's the whole thing about networking. I would also recommend that LinkedIn wants to sell you programs so that you can contact anybody. And I would take advantage of their first month of free service and then don't use it again. Because if you find somebody with whom you are not, you know, a third or second or whatever it is connection, and you can't use that little message button on LinkedIn, it's not that hard to try to figure out where they work and what their real email address is if you wanted to give them a cold pitch. But in addition to using LinkedIn to collect email addresses, you can do promotions for your company, whatever it might be. Hey, sign up for, you know, 10% off on whatever, if you provide me with my email address. You've all seen that on the internet and the way you've done it. If you have a physical store, you ask people to, you know, give them your email address, whatever. Writing emails themselves is a little bit of a science. I used to do this for Capital One. In the subject line, you know, that little thing that you see when the email first comes in, that in itself is, you know, how do I say within, I think it's 50 characters, something that will get somebody to open this email? And how do I make sure it's not words that will immediately get it sent to the junk mail? Anybody who writes an email with a subject line with $signs on it, nobody's going to read it because that's going to immediately go to junk mail. But email is another very effective way of promoting your business. But there are email services that you can use, that you can, you know, batch these things in, that will also provide you with data about how effective your email campaigns have been. Again, they're not going to do this for nothing. There are some costs involved in this, and there is time to do all this stuff. So the recurring theme here is content is king. The social media does something that traditional marketing doesn't do, in that it creates a community. So it's not just me saying, oh, you know, here's an ad, and if you like the ad, you're going to go out and buy my product or service. It's getting other people who say, oh, this is pretty cool, and I'm going to promote this as well. I might just do it because I think it's a great product service. I'm excited about it. Hey, everybody, go to Don's restaurant on 5th Street because I just had the best burger in town. All right. Sometimes that will happen organically. Sometimes you are talking to other so-called social influencers and saying, hey, you know, if you want to promote my business, I'll promote yours, quid pro quid, or, you know, maybe you'll get, you know, free samples of my next product line or whatever. There is some kind of transaction that's going on there. And again, it becomes exponential, right? People, as you build your community, you're building your brand awareness. You're getting more people that are likely to know who you are and to buy whatever it is you're selling. So if I'm a small business and I'm venturing into this, what should I be doing? Well, marketing 101. Who am I selling to? What's my target market? All right. Once I've heard of that, what social media do they use? You know, do I see a lot of people on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever who are talking about they need this, or I'm interested in this, or they're recommending companies that are in the same niche that I'm in? You know, how do you find out about this thing? You can do ads. You can pay there are things called Facebook ads, Google ads that you can pay for. They're called pay-per-click ads, which means that you only pay for these things if somebody clicks on your ad. That doesn't mean they're going to buy whatever it is you're selling. You haven't converted it yet. They don't care about that. But if somebody clicks on the ad, you're going to pay for that. There's also a science to creating these ads. You got so many characters you got to work with. It's like a little bit of a puzzle piece. If you haven't done this, you're going to have to spend a little bit of time trying to figure it out. Maybe not the best way. The other way, you know, get likes. Getting likes on your Instagram. Oh, well, now you're finding out what's effective. I put up a Instagram post and nobody liked it. Well, what did I do wrong? Why isn't that on there? Okay. You can run contests, do surveys. Hey, what's your top 5 restaurants in town? And having filled out our contest, and you've all seen this, right? would you mind giving us your email address for, updates on, the restaurant scene in town? Something like that. All of these things are aimed towards, again, selling your stuff, right? What is going to end up, if I'm running an Instagram page and I'm getting all these likes and all these followings or whatever, nobody's coming into my store, nobody's coming to my website, something's wrong. And there's no answer to this, but I'm going to have the data to look at to try to figure out what's going wrong. So the great thing about social media is you get metrics. You can get them in real time. If you have a website, you'll have access to Google Analytics, which is a free, you don't pay for that. It's part of it being hosted on your website or hosting your website. And you can look at, who's visiting my site, how long do they stay on the pages? If you've got a shopping cart for your website, how do they, what are the minimum conversions? I got X amount of pages, visitors per page. How many of them go in to buy my thing? And you looking at those metrics, you can start making decisions or thinking about next steps and things to improve that. There are programs, again, not for nothing, that will look at all your social media, your Facebook page, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, whatever else it is you're doing, your website. And again, in real time, we'll tell you how many people are visiting, how many people are clicking on them, where they're going after they click on your site. Again, all of which provides insights into what's going on. So what you want to know from these metrics is, again, how visible or reachable your brand is, if consumers are reacting in a positive way, if you're engaging with them, that they're sticking to your web page, they're looking at your posts on Facebook, and how much traffic you're getting. Boy, I'm not getting a lot of traffic to my website. What's going on? Maybe I need a new campaign. I got to offer something. I'm going to go on Facebook and say, if you go to my website, you'll get 10% off on whatever it is I'm doing. Or you go to Facebook, we're having a contest, and the winner gets. I'm now working with a company that it's a solar company, and they're at a random drawing, somebody will win a Tesla. I don't know, there people will do that. So, and if people aren't going into the drawing for the Tesla, it kind of indicates that maybe this isn't what my customers are interested in, although it would be for a solar company. And maybe I got to, again, rethink that. So content is king, part 3. If you're going to have content, it's got to be relevant. It's got to be about your brand, right? Keywords are important to get your ranking, and it's got to go to your customers. Proofread the thing. You are not texting. And you got to check your spelling, because if you don't do this stuff, it's going to look Bush League. Moreover, you got to set a schedule. Every week, you've got to say, I've got to do this. Use more than one platform. And tell them, hey, if you're on Facebook, say, oh, check out my Instagram page. Don't just assume they're going to end up there somehow or another. You got to make it interesting. You got to use images. You got to use good design. And again, it's got to be something relevant. Going back to on time, posting pictures of your kids doesn't matter unless you're selling baby products. So to repeat a little bit what I already said, you're trying to engage your customers. You're developing a community of not only customers, but people who will influence others to become customers. So if I'm just starting out, if I'm you, what do I want to do? I'd look at what my competition is doing. Go do some Google searches. What are they guys doing? What do their websites look like? What is their social media platform? What kind of campaigns are they running? And, rip them off. Not, in other words, imitate them. All right. And that's nothing unethical about that. That's what, competitive analysis is all about doing that. What is my competition doing? What can I do that they're doing that seems successful? And moreover, how can I do it better? I would just start with 1 or 2 platforms. And to me, Facebook, Instagram is a great place to start. It doesn't cost you anything. It's easy to do. If you know that you're audience or have discovered that maybe a lot of your audience is on something else, Pinterest or whatever, then you got to say, whatever. How do you find out about this? Well, maybe you ask post a little Facebook, say, hi, gang, what's your favorite social platform? And if you get a lot of responses of something that you're not on and is easy for you to get on, that's something to investigate. Once again, it's got to be unique. It's got to be engaging content. It's got to be something that is relevant to your brand, is going to make people interested in wanting to look at it. And there is no make it and forget it. Oh, I did my social media posting last week, last month. I got other things to do. Don't bother. If you aren't going to be, I don't know if the word is committed, but if you're not going to have a schedule and we're going to do things in a certain sequence with a certain set of goals and objectives that we want to attain, then it's not even worth bother doing. Now, having said all that, there's a lot more going on here, right? How do I learn more? Well, there's this thing called Google. And there's a rich amount of information. And this is HubSpot, right? What is social media marketing? There's a whole course you can take on this, videos and all this stuff. Let me also point out that if you wanted to see their social trends report, they're going to ask you for your email address, going back to what I said. There's a host of information here. We have just dipped our toes in the proverbial water here, but it is something for you to think about and where to get started about. If you're interested in selling on Amazon, there are literal weeks of courses that you can take about how to improve your performance on that. There's all this stuff here. And then I'm sure there's stuff that Score offers as well that'll help you. If you don't want to do all this, you can hire someone who knows what they're doing. It's always a problem to find somebody who knows what they're doing. There are graphics companies. There are companies that specialize in small businesses. You have to make a decision as to whether you have the budget or whether or not you can afford those things. That leaves you time to concentrate on what it is you're doing, which is creating your products or providing your services. But it's an expensive doing business. Is it worth it? Well, is it worth it to advertise? I mean, if you didn't have to advertise, you don't have to do marketing. Man, let me know, because I'd like to be in your business. Because if they just say, oh, I've got this, and everybody's going to come to me without, doing any kind of work in that regard, good for you. But social media is one of the most effective ways to advertise, because people shop from their phones. That's how you promote it. And it develops and maintains what's called a brand ecosystem. There are echoes of all this stuff. Again, you have people who not only look at it, but will say, hey, I had a great experience using company A, and you should too. And it kind of escalates from there. Moreover, it's measurable. You can know how effective it is. You can see that what people are clicking on and what they aren't clicking. And with that, which is a lot to absorb, I guess, I don't know how much time we have left, but if there's some questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
So we have a little bit of time. We can take a couple questions. If you have a question, could you raise your hand or maybe unmute yourself? David, I'm going to stop your screen sharing.
Sure.
All right. All right, we're going to give a couple minutes to see if we have any questions. It is a lot to take in as a business owner. We're trying to do it all. But your presentation was phenomenal. I love the fact that you talk about SEOs and keywords, because business owners, we must have keywords. If you know how to properly use them, then, as David was sharing, then you can quickly come up or make life just a little bit easier for you on the business side of it. So I think that was phenomenal. Elena said, thank you for your time, David. Lots to think about and getting started. Thank you so much, Elena, for your comment. Any questions before we wrap it up? Okay. All right, David, any last words you want to leave with the audience?
No, I mean, as I said, that this is I said at the beginning, we're talking about the tip of the iceberg here, and our feet aren't even getting cold yet. So there's a lot to take in, but I think the main thing to emphasize is that, if I'm a business owner, and I'm trying to figure out what am I doing during the week. If I set aside, if you're like that, 5 hours a week, I'm going to concentrate on posting. I'm going to concentrate on looking at the results that I get. That's a good place to start. It can escalate from there. But don't try to do everything all at once. Don't assume that just, I got a website, I can go to sleep. This is and it is part of running your business. That's another way of looking at it. I mean, you may think, I need to, do X, Y, and Z. I need to source my products. I need to do, I don't have the time for this. Well, if you don't have the time for it, you don't have the time to have a business.
Absolutely. Nikki said, great enlightening information. Melanie or Melena said, thank you for the information. I just updated the SEOs on my website and I maintain it myself. It is much cheaper to find the time in the beginning to do it yourself if you have the skills to do it. Fred, a very interesting presentation. Carla said, thank you, David, for this presentation. And Tom, of course, said, thank you, very informative. Thank you, Tom Davis. He's a mentor. So I just want to thank David for his time, taking a moment to educate, enlighten, and entertain the audience. We appreciate you coming on and helping score out with this presentation. And I want to thank you guys for taking a minute to spend some time to learn something new for your business, because as David said, you have to do it. Somebody has to do it. So I know we had a couple copywriters on here and we had a couple website developers on here. So hopefully you guys did some networking and can connect with each other to help each other out. So I want y'all to have a phenomenal upcoming weekend. You guys will get a survey coming very soon. And we appreciate you spending your morning with us. Guys, have a good day. Bye. Thank you so much, David.
Thanks. Good luck, everybody.
Bye.